Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today we have the meta snapshot for patch 14.3b. There was a B patch. Let's go over it really quickly. Super tiny. So some things have changed, though, because the best comps right now, they might surprise you a little bit. You'll see in just a moment. But Augment's extended play has been disabled. Heartthrobs has also been disabled. And then they also are nerfing Heartsteel at 5 Heartsteel. But in case you missed it, we did go over how to play Heartsteel in the last video. This got nerfed a little bit. So 5 Heartsteel has its multiplier being changed from 2.25 to 2. It's still very good. It was just that OP before. So onto the 2 costs. This is where like things get a little weird. So Kayle 2 and 3 star actually gets a small nerf. Still very good. And then for 3 costs, Riven gets a slight nerf as well. 4 costs, Zed gets a small nerf, and that is going to affect a lot of the Ezreal builds. But you'll see in just a moment that it's still the best comp. So Scrappy Inventions also got a bug fix, and then Gwynsu's Rageblade stacks no longer sometimes reset when a unit is summoned during combat. Let's get into how to play each and every single one of these comps. So in the S tier, we have Heartsteel Ezreal, Katarina Reroll, Lulu Reroll, Seraphine Reroll, Kayle Reroll, Riven Reroll, and Senna Reroll. Yeah, it's a reroll patch. Okay, so a lot of them are 2-cost rerolls. Some people speculate the reason why is because Heartsteel got a lot weaker, so all those people going for like the 4-cost comps, they can't completely overpower a lot of the 2-cost reroll comps. We have 1, 2, 3 of them up here, or 4 of them, including Senna, and then for 3 costs we have Lulu and Riven. After that, we have Pentakill, Executioner Reroll, Annie, Twin Terror, Ahri Warriors, Punk, Misfortune Reroll, Yasuo Reroll, True Damage, Twisted Fate Disco, Country, and Yone Reroll in the A tier. All pretty solid. Like, I'm actually kind of disappointed that Yone's not very good, but it's true. There are a lot better options now. And then in the B tier and the C tier, some like random comps, but we don't really need to spend too much time on those. You should really be focusing mostly on the S and A tiers as per usual. So let's start off with Ezreal Heartsteel. So again, in yesterday's video, you're going to get like a very in-depth tutorial on how to play Heartsteel because I cover 3 different ways on how to play them. One is getting Heartsteel very early in the game and just using it to build up econ, go to level 8, roll down, go to level 9, roll down, go to level 10, win the game. And then after that, we go over another game where you just use Heartsteel once in stage 3. And then we go over the final game, the third way to use Heartsteel, which is my favorite, where you win streak in the early game and then you lose streak with Heartsteel in stage 4, get nice cash outs, and ideally get like pretty big loot because 5 Heartsteel in stage 4, absolutely bonkers if you haven't tried it yet before. But this comp is really good because there are so many different item holders. You get a ton of items from Heartsteel. A ton of support items are good too because you just have so many people to itemize. Every legendary unit can be itemized. All your tanks can be itemized. Like worst case, like if you have items on like, let's say your Aphelios or something like that, it's not the end of the world, you know, because that means you have too many items that like you couldn't fit it on all the good people. You have to put it on Aphelios. What I'm trying to say is like this comp has a lot of different users of items. Before was the level 8 version up here and then the level 9 down here. You can mix and match the two a little bit because they have a lot of overlap and like there are different item holders depending on like who you get as a headliner. So what headliner should you get? Well, Ezreal is going to be the best one. Zed's going to be very solid, and then any 4-cost frontline is going to be good. So like was that like Zac, Poppy, things like that. Even Thresh in some situations. You kind of just use it to stabilize in stage 4. Like pretty much in stage 4, when you roll down, you have a 30% chance to get a 4-cost headliner, and with those, you can't get greedy. So if we take a look at all the 4-cost units in the game right now, so we have Ahri, the Akali, Blitzcrank, Caitlyn, Ezreal. Let me zoom in a bit more. Karthus, Poppy, Thresh, Twisted Fate, Viego, Zac, and Zed. So when you have Heartsteel, like the best ones are going to be Ezreal and Zed for sure, right? After that, probably Zac and Poppy. And then after that, you could use some of the weird ones. So since you have a blue buff, you could just get Ahri, for example, and just play her temporarily if you have blue buff for Ezreal already. And then just play her during stage 4, and then maybe on like stage 5-1, you sell her and go for a better one. That's one option if you see Ahri early. I'm not saying go for Ahri chosen. I'm just saying there are some situations where you can take other headliners. So Akali could be used and then you pivot into one of the KDA comps or one of the Executioner comps that we'll get into a bit later. But Akali can pretty much use all your Zed items that you were carrying before. Blitzcrank, it's okay as like a solo tank if you have like a Sentinel Blitzcrank. Caitlyn is much harder to tell though because she is remarkably worse than Ezreal, but she could use a lot of the same items. So you could use her temporarily, but I prefer not to. I might skip over her. It depends on the situation. Karthus probably can't use him because he uses a lot of ability power items and we don't have those. Thresh, okay, as like a backup tank option to use temporarily. Twisted Fate, pass on that one. Viego, you could use this guy to hold all your Zed items, so that one is very usable. And you could also pivot into some sort of Pentakill build if you have the means for it. And then, of course, Zach good and Zed good. So pretty much like the only ones that are absolutely horrible are probably like Karthus and Twisted Fate. So you pretty much should take like most of your 4-cost chosens, you know? It depends on how much gold you have as you roll down, but if you see one of the even like bad ones, if you see like an Akali on like your first roll, you could just take the Akali and then go level 9, you know? Like you don't have to stay on level 8 forever. But if you do want to check out the full how to play section, head on over to the website bunnymuffins.lol. We'll go over the items a little bit. So blue buff, red buff, Ezreal is the best, and then I like having Infinity Edge third item. After you have your Ezreal items, going for a Even Shroud is really good. You could put it on any of your frontliners. Everyone's like, oh, do I have to put it on Zach? No, you could put it on Set as well, you know? What I like to do is I like to have one main tank, one utility tank. So I like having 3 pure tank items on one tank and then all the like utility tank items on another. So one person would hold the Even Shroud, another person holds all like Warmogs, Bramble, whatever you have. But in practice, like whoever you have 2-starred, at the time you have the item, just put the item on them. So if you have Set 2-star early, like throw your tank items on him. If you get a Poppy 2-star later, then like eventually try to transfer it over, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. For Zed, or like it could be transferred to Yorick later, Edge of Night, crucial, and then after that some sort of healing item, so Hextech Gunblade or Bloodthirster, and then some damage item like Deathblade, Infinity Edge, even like a Titans could do. I don't like Titans that much on him, but it's definitely like a decent item on him. If you want like some more random item recommendations, we could head on over to the stats website, teamfight.lol, go to champions, and then sort by like who are we looking for, like Zed. Click on Zed, and then there are like a bunch of random items you could kind of try out. Lots of things work, yeah, like Giant Slayer, Hand of Justice also are good. Yeah, even like a Runons can be done too. Let's move on into the next comp. We have Katarina Reroll. This is going to be first of those reroll comps that we are kind of talking about. So Katarina is really good with Superfan. So what's happening a lot of times with the reroll comps, I don't know if you noticed the pattern at the very start when we went over the summary. So if you did, congratulations, but Katarina Reroll, Seraphine Reroll, and Senna Reroll. What do all these comps have in common? They all use Superfan. So Katarina Reroll uses Superfan. We'll see in a little bit. Where's the other one? Lulu Reroll. This one also uses Superfan. What was the last one? Senna. I think that was at the bottom, the S tier. Hey, they use Superfan. So Superfan is a really good way to add a lot of value to your board with like pretty much no money, because you have Nico, Kennen, and Lilia. So these units do not cost much. 2 of them are 1 cost, 1 of them's a 3 cost. So it's just a really easy way to add a lot of power to your board. Sometimes you get them 3-starred as well because you're re-rolling for Katarina. Like, obviously you don't need them 3-star, but sometimes it happens and you get a little more strong as well. But you really just use them for the extra item. Katarina, it gives her a best in slot item. Best in slot just means like best. I don't know why people just don't say best, but that's pretty much what it is. She gets a Hand of Justice, you add another Hand of Justice to her, and then you add a Jeweled Gauntlet. She just crits everything, heals up a bunch every time she casts, and it's just really, really good. You add in as many crowd divers as you can after that, and that's pretty much all you need to do with this build. It's really easy, really nice, and very, very powerful. You just want to play 2-cost reroll in your leveling pattern. In case you all missed the leveling video at the start of the set, let's go over 2-cost reroll leveling because it's pretty popular in this patch. So in stage 2, you do not want to level up in a lot of cases. Like, don't press the XP button or buy XP button, I forget what it's called. And you also want to do not roll during level 4. For level 5, also do not roll. You hit level 5 around stage 3-1, and then you hit level 6 at 3-2 or 3-5. Depends on how badly you need to stabilize. So sometimes you need to stabilize a little bit at level 6. That means you roll down until you hit like 2-star Katarina or something like that, or find like Headliner Katarina, one of the two. That's typically what stabilizing means when you are doing a reroll comp. After that, you want to save up to 50 gold, and then roll down to 50 gold every single turn until you hit Katarina 3, or like find a good time to all in. I write a little bit more about that here, but of course you can check all that out on the website. After that, you want to level up to level 7 once you hit your desired 3-star, and then go to level 8, level 9, level 10, whatever it is, and just add more synergies in. So in this case, when we're playing Katarina Reroll, we have the Superfans, that's 3 units. We have the Katarina, that's 4 units. We add in a Crowd Diver, that's 5 units. That's like the core of the comp. add in Echo, that's 6, and then after that we level up, just add in more and more Crowd Divers. That's all you have to do. And that's pretty much the comp, pretty easy to do. Next comp we have is Lulu Reroll. So Lulu is going to be a 3-cost reroll. I just realized when I was talking about 2-cost rerolls before, I looked at Lulu. We meant to look at Seraphine and Kayle. But Seraphine's over here, super fan. Kayle, super fan as well. So, but ironically enough, Lulu also runs a super fan. So it is what it is, super fans. Like, sometimes they're just super dominant. I guess you could call this the only something else patch, but maybe I'm not allowed to say that word. But we have 5 Spellweaver here, we have a bunch of KDAs, we have the superfans, Guardian, Sentinel, True Damage, Hyper Pop, and then you just want Lulu 3, add a Shojin on her. Why don't we check out some of the Lulu items, you know? Because just because something's in a picture doesn't mean you have to build it. So it's clear that the most built items are going to be Spear Shojin and Nashor's Tooth. And then also some people build the blue buff. Blue buff, oddly enough, has a better average placement than Shojin. But maybe that's because people build blue buff in like situations where they have like a 2-star Lulu when they're playing some of the other comps, and then that means they have so many items they can afford to put them on Lulu. Most people are building Shojin though. So average placement doesn't mean anything, play rate means a lot as well. Other items you could build, Jeweled Gauntlet. I wouldn't build like the Shiv or the Rage Blade. I guess it could work, but maybe like the Gunblade is decent, Red Buff, Morello, Deathcap, those would be more of my go-tos. Because you have to remember, Lulu at the end of the day is a support unit in like 90% of her other cases, but in this specific comp, she is obviously the star, so you want to put carry items on her. After that, secondary carry up your Ahri. Ahri is going to be very solid. I just realized I'm a complete idiot. The reason why Shojin shows up for Lulu so often is because that's a super fan item. Just ignore like what I said in the past like minute or so, but it's just something to like keep in mind. So that's why the play rate is super high. Other items you want in this comp is definitely some sort of magic penetration. So it's easiest to do with a Ionic Spark on your Nico. You could also throw a Static Shiv on your like Sona or Seraphine, even your Ahri if you don't have enough Ahri items. By the way, Sona is absolutely disgusting with like Rage Blade, Static Shiv. I love that combo so much on her. She ends up being like my highest damage dealer in the game. But Lulu is going to be a 3-cost reroll comp. It's a little bit different than 2-cost reroll. You kind of level up a little more aggressively sometimes, or you could like do super econ, do the same thing, except instead of stabilizing at level 6, you do it at level 7, generally on stage 3, 5, or 4, 1. It depends on how much gold you kind of have, but pretty simple comp. You could also go for like Echo 3. I've seen that do decently well. But since other people are going super fans as well, it's kind of hard to get Echo and Nico 3-star. So Seraphine Reroll going to be the next comp up. Morello, Hat, and Shojin going to be the classic items there. Morello, I think, is like her most important item. Like, you could obviously play it without it, but it definitely feels better when you do have the Morello. Very similar build to what we saw before. Are these the two builds exactly the same? They're exactly the same. You just switch out your carry. So what you can do, you could kind of like flex between these two comps because they kind of use the same items, right? They both have like the Morello, and then you have like the Superfan item, and then you could like build whatever random third item you want. But what you should pay attention to during your game is check out how many of each champion you get. So you could like hard force this line or like go for one of these like AP reroll comps and then see which unit you get more of as the game progresses. So if you're in like stage 2 and you have like a lot of Lulus, or even like stage 3 and you have a lot of Lulus, obviously go for the Lulu comp. If you have a lot of Seraphines, go for the Seraphines. But like they're pretty much the same comp. You just have your headliner switch. So that's really all there is to it. KDA or Spellweaver Seraphine are good. Ideally it's KDA because then you get to 5 KDA nice and easy. But obviously you could use either or. But yeah, same reroll leveling pattern as the Katarina build, which is the 2-cost reroll at level 6. And that's pretty much all you need to know after that. Next comp up we have is Kayle Reroll. So Kayle Reroll does work a little bit differently. She loves having a Rage Blade, so her superfan item is also a Rage Blade, so you build 2 Rage Blades on her. I've even seen 3 Rage Blades work, and then a Hextech Gunblade as well. Let's look up some of her other items. Type in Kayle here. Yeah, it's just Rage Blade. I guess you could build the other stuff. Like, wow, look at Static Shiv. Static Shiv is absolutely smacking. I guess if you have like double Rage Blade Static Shiv, you get a lot of Static Shiv value. So that could be something to look into. But the most builds I've seen, they're mainly either triple Rage Blade or double Rage Blade with the Hextech Gunblade. And then after that, you just throw some anti-heal on your Viego. So what does Kayle do differently than the Nico comp or the Seraphine comp? Have you guys noticed the pattern yet? We could look at the Lulu comp as well. What's the one thing that's like seems sort of missing? So I already kind of gave it away. Nico has an Ionic Spark here, right? But Kayle does not need Ionic Spark because if you actually read Kayle's abilities, we could go database champion. I'm going to type in Kayle here. She has built-in magic penetration into her kit, so she shreds people already. So she doesn't actually need the magic penetration. Like, yeah, you could still build it. It's not like a horrible item, and if you have the components for it already, then sure, why not? Ionic Spark actually reduces by 30%, Kayle reduces by 20%, but 20% is good enough. For your headliner, Pentakill or Edgelord both work, but Edgelord is a little bit better because you don't want to just run a random Edgelord. We'd rather run Pentakill units. So if we look here, if we think of all the Pentakills we're running right now, it's like Kayle, that's her main carry. Viego and Karthus, both 4 cost, so they're both good units. Gnar is a super fan, so we have to play him anyways. And then Mordekaiser, a very solid tank, and also gets Sentinel from super fan. So you get to fit the comp really easily without needing the extra trait from the headliner bonus. So getting the Edgelord one is a bit better because if you get Pentakill, you have to run like a random Edgelord, and they're typically like not as impactful. Like, who are the Edgelords? Like Kayn, Yone, Riven, like who really cares about what they do? They don't add much to your team. But yeah, 2-cost reroll, do the same exact thing as the other comps, but just switch up the items. Reroll, Riven is going to be next. This is a tried and true. It did get nerfed slightly in the patch notes that we looked at earlier. Or was it over here? So what did she actually lose? She went from 90% AD to 85% AD. I mean, like, yeah, does it affect her? Sure. Is she still really good? Yes. Should you still play her? Yes. If you get a lot of Riven, should you still play her? Of course. So that's really all you need to know about this 3-cost reroll. The only important thing is like build Quicksilver on Riven. Do not play this comp without Quicksilver. Like, yeah, you might get away with not having it some games, but you generally always want to have this item. It's like by far her best item. Let's look at this. Like 4.25 compared to Bloodthirster, 4.43 compared to Titans, 4.4. Like, you need the Quicksilver. It's like, yeah, there's no substitute for that. But roll on level 7 for this one. Sometimes you do want to push 8 because in order to fit the whole comp in, you need to be level 8 a lot of times. So that's just another thing to kind of keep in mind whenever you're playing this. Next comp up we have is Twin Terror. So Twin Terror is still pretty solid. It did get nerfed a bit. The performance and the augment stats are a little bit worse. We could check that out too. Augment stats are always pretty important to kind of take a look at. Whoa, what are we looking at again? We were looking at Twin Terror. So yeah, it's not performing as well as it was before, but I find that like a lot fewer people are going for these comps now, especially with all the superfan bullcrap going around. Like, people are going for the superfans, and they're not quite going for like the Vex Amumu combo. So because of that, this comp is much more viable. Even Twitch is open. Twitch Pantheon's much easier to find now because all the 2 costs are being taken out of the pool. So this comp is pretty good. You just have to decide whether you want to go for Vex carry or Twitch carry. It's going to depend on how many copies of each champion you get, plus whatever items you get. But do either a 2-cost or 3-cost reroll pattern for this because it's going to depend on obviously which carry you're going for as your primary. For items, Twitch likes Red Buff, Infinity Edge, Deathblade, things like that. Vex likes any AP items plus a mana item. So you could go like Adaptive Helm plus 2 damage items. You could go Blue Buff plus 2 damage items. Samira pretty much uses any attack damage item. So like what you see there is pretty solid. But simple 2 or 3-cost reroll depending on the situation. Let's go over Senna next. By the way, I just realized that the Twin Terror comp, I moved it already, but it's actually in the A tier, not in the S tier. I just forgot to move it in the thing, but we could skip it when we get there. So now we have Senna Reroll. So Senna Reroll plays the same superfan package. It also uses a lot of similar items to the other 2-cost rerolls, or like the other AP rerolls such as Seraphine and the Lulu. We have Shojin, Nashers plus the hat. But this one's a little bit different because we go into true damage. So obviously, both Rapidfire and true damage both work. I think I prefer Rapidfire more because then you could drop Aphelios. I don't like Aphelios that much, even though he does provide some crowd control. But in the end, it doesn't make that much of a difference. You just take whichever one you can get. And then for your other carries, you want to put your tank items on the Echo. You want to put a secondary carry on the Akali. And then obviously, Kiana can use whatever leftover items you have in the late game. Pretty simple build though. You run the same superfans, and Echo's going to be your main tank for sure because you're going for true damage. Next build up we have is the A tier. So Pentakill, very solid still. Probably the second most popular 4-cost comp. It's great to like pivot into this comp from the Heartsteel start, but obviously you prefer playing Heartsteel. But if you ever get a mix of AP and AD items, this is a pretty good option to go for because both Karthus and Viego and Akali kind of use all sorts of different items. Weirdly enough, we are also playing Superfans, and that's just because you want a lot of items in this comp. It's not even because Superfan's good, it's just because items are good in this comp because you have 3 different carries and you also want to itemize a tank. That's kind of why it works pretty well here. As for who your primary carry is, it's gonna depend. So in this situation, we have Viego as a headliner, but you could use anyone as a headliner. Just take whichever first one shows up and kind of just roll with it. After that, you just want to throw in as many pentakills as possible, but also fit KDA so that you have KDA Akali. KDA Akali with healing debuff, so red buff or Morellonomicon is super, super powerful because she applies it to so many different people. Other items that are good on her is Titan's Resolve because she stays alive for a really long time when she's KDA Akali because she jumps around and de-aggros. So very popular comp right now, definitely give it a try. Next up we have is Executioners. This is another reroll comp. This is like very similar to the Twin Terror comp, except instead of running multiple copies of your 3-cost units such as Samira and Vex, you just run extra Executioners, get to 6x, and that's going to be all you really need to make this comp work. But just follow the 3-cost reroll pattern, not too much complicated here. Next up we have is Annie Reroll. This is going to be a 1-cost reroll. So I say only go for Annie Reroll if you have like at least 5 Annies at the start of the game, including Headliner Annie. And then if you don't have Headliner Annie, have like a 2-star Annie, non-headliner, and then maybe you could still hard force it, you know? Obviously, you need good items for her. You want 2 mana items, so blue buff plus Shojin is going to be incredible. Her Superfan item is going to give her Jeweled Gauntlet, but you don't need to run Superfan with her. It's actually better not to if you actually look at the data, because Jeweled Gauntlet isn't that necessary on her. So what you want to do is like stack up emos instead, and then with the double mana item, she just like gets to her empowered cast like so quickly, and then she just like steamrolls everyone. But very solid comp. Just add in like more emos, more Spellweaver as you level up. That's really all you have to kind of care about. But next up we have is Twin Terror. So we already went over this one, so we could skip that. And then we have the Ahri Warrior comp. So this comp is like, I like it a lot. It's kind of cool. It's just like Ahri plus a bunch of random people. We're also running Superfan here, so we get the free Ahri item. I think it's a hat that you get. And then obviously you could get a headliner Zed also, because Zed getting like Crowd Diver or EDM, like it doesn't really do that much on him, but he doesn't need much to kind of do a lot of work. So don't kind of like greed for Ahri. Just because Ahri is the name of the comp doesn't mean you have to get her as headliner, but just throw mana items on her. It's the same Ahri build as we've been doing the entire set, blue buff Nashers, things like that. Some utility tank items are going to work well. So a lot of people might ask, like, when do I go for like a pure tank? When do I go for a utility tank? If you haven't noticed the pattern yet, a lot of the 3-cost units are typically going to be more so utility, because a 3-cost 2-star is not going to be like a super giga tank or anything. But if you look at some of like the ways that the legendary units are kind of itemized, maybe look at the way some of the 4-cost units are kind of itemized, like they're a bit more beefy, so they could kind of infinite tank. So it's like on Alawi, you want to put like full tank items on her. But for the 3-cost tanks, we could take a look at like the what's it called? What was that? The disco build? Like, yeah, Blitzcrank gonna use full tank items because he's a 4-cost tank, you know? But for the 3-cost tanks, like they're not gonna live that long compared to other units. So just throw like utility items on them. You're gonna be good to go there. So just like Sunfire them and call it a day. But this comp, you want to just go to level 8 as fast as possible. It's just like a fast 8 comp roll down for these units. But you could also like stabilize at level 7 a little bit, because you have a lot of random units that are like low cost, like 3 and 1 cost, like more than half the team is. So you could kind of go that angle also, and then just use like a random headliner to kind of hold your items until you could like safely reach level 8. Don't bleed out whenever you're trying to fast 8. And then by the time you hit your comp, you're like dead already, because that's just not a good way to play. Punk Reroll going to be the next build we have up here. This one's going to be like a Jinx build. They did remove extended play because there's like not really a bug abuse, but like kind of mechanic abusing, and they aren't really sure how to quite fix it yet. But this comp is definitely pretty solid. It's great in lower ratings. I've been saying this all set, but Punk is like super, super good at lower ratings. So you could keep playing this a lot, but what I've noticed is that like everyone goes for Punk because it's easy to play. So I'm guessing like a lot of people caught on to like Punk being really good at like gold, because I watched my friend who is in gold play, and I was like, yeah, just force Punk every game, easy. And then like I go to his game and like 3 other people are playing Punk, so I was like, okay, maybe you can't force it every game because people know. So that's why you got to stay subscribed to my channel, and also like bookmark my website, bunnymuffins.lol, so that you'd be the first to know. And I actually talked about Punk when it was like B tier or C tier like 1 month ago, or maybe it was 2 months ago. I don't even remember. And it was like averaging like a 4.7 in Master Plus. So no one Master Plus was playing it, but it was averaging like low fours or like high threes in every other rating. So I forget which one it was, but I definitely mentioned that before. And if you're a knower, you're a knower. So obviously, Punk did not show up on any tier list at all, but like you have to watch the video sometimes because there are things that apply to you that might not be reflected in like a plot summary, you know? So next up we have is Misfortune Reroll. Misfortune Reroll is going to run the Superfan package as well, but it's not because Superfan's good, it's because you could fit a lot of traits in. So Superfan gives you KDA, Superfan, True Damage, and it gives you Guardian and Sentinel. So that's like what? I don't even know how many we named. Like, what was that, 4 or 5 traits already? So you only run it because it gives a lot of other stuff. It's not because the item is like that good. Like obviously Deathblade on Misfortune is a good item, but the main purpose of running Superfan is just to get Jazz value because you want to Jazz over everyone. So how many units do we have here? We have 7 units here. So you could add in at level 8, obviously the Lucian, and then get to 3 or 4 Jazz and kind of just be decently happy after that. Add in Dazzler if you want, and then your comp is kind of good to go. Obviously, if you get like, what's it called? Like That's Jazz Baby, go for both like Bard and Misfortune 3-star because it's super, super powerful. Bard just puts Spirit Shojin plus any ability power items on him, and you're going to be more than solid. Next up we have is Yasuo Reroll. Yasuo Reroll, you only play this, like, you know how I said with Annie, if you have like 5 Annies with Headliner or 3 Annies without Headliner, you probably want like 1 more copy of Yasuo to go for it. So you might want like 6 copies of Yasuo with the Headliner, or maybe like 4 copies of Yasuo without the Headliner in order to go for this comp. So that's just like a estimate, you know, like obviously if you have completely insane items for him, like, yeah, maybe you could go for it with only 3 Yasuos. Or if you have like no items for him and you have like 7 Yasuos, like maybe you wouldn't even go for him because if you don't have items for him, he's kind of useless, super item dependent. You just want him to blow everything up and then obviously just complement him with true damage and get everyone going after that. And then it's just like a typical true damage build that we see here. I believe the next comp is true damage as well, so we could talk more about it here. Akali, just throw Edge of Night on her, a healing item and a damage item. Edge of Night's just by far the best like melee frontline item. There's really no replacement for it, so that's why everyone's kind of building it everywhere. But then, of course, in the late game, you go for a Kiana carry. Kiana carry is going to farm you a ton of items, hopefully, because with 6 true damage, she ends up dealing like a bunch of damage, and obviously when she kills someone you get an extra item component, and the game can easily snowball really quickly after that. I would only go for true damage comps if you have a spatula, so if you are on a portal where spatula is available, definitely like go for these comps a little bit harder because the comp gets like infinitely better with this. Also, we have like a nice little like early game guide here if you guys want to check that out for the true damage comp. So next comp up we have is Disco Dazzler, Twisted Fate. Pretty weak right now, like not the strongest, but you know, if you have to play it, you have to play it. If you have a lot of ability power items and you can't do one of the reroll comps, because he uses very similar items to the reroll comps, right? Like we have a Morello here, we have a Shojin here, like Archangel's Gunblade could be used in the other comps too. Obviously, try to go for the rerolls, but if you just like can't do it, or you're just like win streaking hard, you want to stay up with your win streak, so you level up aggressively and then you don't have enough economy to reroll, or like you're like too high level to reroll, I should say. One option is to play the Twisted Fate comp. Hopefully you beat a few guys and then you like lose out and get a third. Or if you high roll, get all the legendaries 2-star, then you could win some games. But it's hard to get like Alawi 2, Sona 2, Ziggs 2, obviously, right? I mean, if you could do that every game, you'd win every game. I would play Disco every time. But the TFT does not work like that. But yeah, pretty much just fast 8 for this board. But I would also definitely play this comp if you have a lot of health, not if you have none. Next comp up we have is Country Reroll. Country Reroll definitely is like a little bit worse than it was at the start of the set. It's still okay though. Like obviously if you get a ton of Samirias and you have a bunch of Infinity Edges, go for it. You could also flex between this and an Executioner build that we talked about before. The only weird part about it is that Samira uses different items in the Country build and the Executioner build. In the Country build you want stuff like Infinity Edge, but if you look at the Executioner build, we actually don't have Infinity Edge on her. Let's find that here. Over here, like we have Giant Slayer, Deathblade, and Hand of Justice. The reason why you don't need Infinity Edge on her when she is in the Executioner build is because she already gets a ton of crit from the Executioner trait. But when she's Country, you want like a little more so that she crits every time because it gives her style and flare stacks. And that's why you want like to overlap on the critical strike chance Urgot's solid secondary carry option. Like obviously red buff is good, and Urgot is so good in the mid game. Like during stage 3, this comp stabilizes so hard. Stage 2, 3 country wins a lot of games as well, so it's a really good win streak comp, which is kind of contrary to a lot of other rerolls. So overall, pretty solid. Do a 3-cost reroll pattern and level 7 like slow roll. And if you ever get Three's Company, incredible for this comp. Next one up we have is Yone Reroll. Rest in peace, my friend. Sad days. Like I've hit it a couple of times. It just doesn't have the same power as it has before. Like it is what it is. Luckily, we still have secondary carries. We have Zed and Viego, but gone are the days where you just sack your whole game to try to get Yone 3-star. You hit him, you're on like 3 life, and then you win every round after that and get a first place. Very difficult to do that now because some Heartsteel player is going to knock you out. So as you are lose streaking and trying to get like Giga Econ, get Yone 3 with perfect items, things like that, there's going to be a Heartsteel out there doing the same exact thing, except they're playing like a level 9 board with like 2-star Ezreal, 2-star Poppy, 2-star Zac, 2-star Set, maybe like an Alawi 1, maybe like a Lucian 1 or something like that, and they're going to steamroll your comp. Lucian's actually really good against Yone because if Lucian targets your Yone, he reduces his armor for the rest of the match, and that allows Yone to like kind of get killed in some situations. So you have to be careful because again, you can't just like win streak the entire game after you hit Yone 3-star. So that's kind of why the comp is a bit weaker, along with like a small nerf it received in the last patch. But level 7, 3-cost reroll pattern for this comp, it's still pretty solid. You just can't be as greedy as before. So B tier comps, Ahri Sentinel, whatever, like not that great of a comp anymore. I don't know why people complain that I don't rate this comp higher, because everyone's like, well, not everyone, but some people were like, ever since it was put into the B tier, they're like, oh no, Ahri Sentinel's still good, but like it really isn't. I have not seen a top player play it in a very, very long time. Well, that's a lie. I've seen them play it, but it's like very, very sparingly. Olaf Reroll got a bump down as well. Just not as strong as he used to be. You know, the small nerf he got kind of hurt him quite a bit. Like, let's take a look at the Olaf data. Like, I think I even mentioned this when I went over the patch notes. Like, he wasn't even that good before. Where's Olaf? He's at 4.34 right now. Before he was at what? 4.2. Like for a 1-cost reroll, 4.2 is like slightly above average. It's not anything crazy, you know. Like Annie was a 4.12. Where's Olaf? 4.2. Like yeah, I don't know. Like yeah, was he like above average? Sure. Like he's better than Yasuo, you know, but like he's not by any means like the best reroll comp, let alone 1-cost reroll. But going on into the next one, we have Rapidfire, Caitlyn, Bruisers. This is just a backup option in case you can't hit Ezreal. You can kind of use Caitlyn the same way. But yeah, don't look at the B tier. Don't play the B. Actually, look at the B tiers, but don't play them. You know, that's gonna be all the comps for this week, though. So again, the B patch did not really change that much. It made like rerolls a lot better, but like all the comps that were good before or playable before are still playable. You still want to do the Heartsteel bullcrap. But obviously, like you have a lot of options with this like reroll stuff as well. So Katarina, Seraphine, Senna, Kayle, learn to love them. But that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Let me know what comps you kind of are looking forward to in the future. And also, I did hear from like Mortdog's Twitter. Mortdog is the game developer for TFT, in case you all didn't know. He said something like the next patch should be really small. So I think he said it was the smallest patch in the history of TFT. So we really should put a lot of effort into learning all of these comps. I'm guessing they're just going to nerf Superfan a little bit, but that's going to be it for me today. I hope to see you all next time.